All right, everyone, here is your next project. We're going to do a keychain. As you can see here, here's one example. This is one that I made just previous to this. It has lived in a drawer for a little bit, so there's a few scratches, but you want to make sure that you clean yours up as well as you can. A couple of examples. This one, this other one here, this one's got some texture, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what you're going to do is you're going to choose from one of these 4 templates right here. Graduation years, old logo, new logo, either way, any of them work, okay? Today, I'm going to demo the cat head logo. And here is your first step. So, I'm going to start right here with this template. It's just a piece of paper, and the first step you need to do is find a pen or pencil that's sharp, and we need to mark some things so that we can take some measurements. So take a jeweler's ruler, and you're going to extend these lines just like this. And the reason why you want to do this is the next step, you take your divider, and this is adjusted by moving this. This is a really great way to capture a measurement. You can either pull directly from a ruler, or just as we're doing here, grab it from the piece of paper. So I put one side down and crank it down until it matches up. Now we want to figure out what metal we're using. This is an excellent time to talk about the options. We have brass, we have nickel, and we have copper. And these are they're easy enough to work with. They are fairly inexpensive, and they're a decent gauge to where that they're fairly strong. Now, gauge is the thickness of the metal, and with copper, we actually have a heavier gauge. This is 22 gauge, and this is 14. The smaller the number, the heavier the gauge. This is a little harder to cut, so I only recommend using this for the back plate right here. Okay, the back plate here would be the nickel, and the brass would be the top plate. Here I used the thicker for the back and the thinner in the front. So there they are. This one is copper. It's just been tarnished like crazy. Just do a little sanding, it cleans up real nice. All right. So we've got the divider here, we've got our measurement, and what you need to do, take your piece, I'm going to use copper here, and we are going to take a big old marker. You can use this big marker on my bench or any old Sharpie, and we are going to mark the corners, because we need to cut corners off of this this piece of metal to match the template. And so we go around, and all you have to do is just go like this. Please don't lay this on the table without a piece of paper under it and start marking, because you'll make marks on the wood table. And so if you do want to lay it down, make sure you've got a piece of tape or paper underneath so that there's no marks left on the table. All right. I learned this trick from watching a blacksmith mark metal, and it worked really well. So now we've got this measurement here, and we want to transfer it here. All we need to do is line up this edge with the square side, and you just make a little hash mark just like this, okay? And you work your way all the way around. Once you've gone all the way around, you can take your jeweler ruler and Okay, new tool alert here. Right here, this is called a scribe point. And this is simply made to make marks in metal. You're scratching it. So I've got my marks here that I've scribed into the metal, and I line up my ruler with the ends of those marks, and I scribe a line just like that. I'm going to lay it down so I can see it real well, so it's stable. So you can see the marks a little better. And what you're going to do is make a mark right there. I've missed it a little bit, so I need to make an adjustment. Those kind of things totally happen. This, think of it as like all these marks are going on the back. This will be the side facing front, okay? All of your marks go on the back of all these pieces. So I can adjust this. Scribe a new line. That's much more accurate right there. Please be very accurate with your marks. All right, friends, this is the shear. It's old, it's expensive, and this is made of plastic. So we want to be very careful with it. This is the fence. This right here correlates with the ruler here. It's the distance between here and the blade that's under here, okay? Right here is a ruler, and if you want to come in on that, you can see there's inches and millimeters. We use millimeters because they're much more accurate, okay? If, say we wanted to make a cut at 50 millimeters, that line right there is what we're trying to get at. So so it might be too close. I always pull it too far and then bring it in real slow and careful. And if I were to line it up right there, then 2 fingers, and that's all I need, just very gently. This, you can break it right off, is not awesome, okay? Because that is as solid as it gets, okay? That works for any measurement, of course, and to make a cut, you would simply take a piece of metal. This is just a simple piece of nickel. This handle, so if you zoom out, goes up like this. Then I would slide my metal in this way. It would hit the fence. I hold it down with my left hand, and then I would close this. And that is how you make a cut. I can move this out of the way, and there is a perfectly square piece of metal. When you're doing your keychain, how you're working on this, so I've marked all of my corners. I've got a straight edge on all of them. We are going to a little do-si-do here. And this is going to be much more of an eyeballing kind of a thing. I've got my line there. I can see where the blade, so I'm looking down on an angle very aggressive like this, so kind of over my shoulder. You might be able to see. I'm lining that up with the bottom edge of that blade. Then, if you come to this side, I am simply moving this in here until it touches the metal. I'm not worried about the number. Tighten the stop, and then I can very consistently cut off all of these corners. And I'm just lining up the scribe line to the blade, and I'm taking the same amount off all the way around. I want you to do this with both the top and bottom pieces, and that makes for a very quick cut. And if you look very carefully, you can see how that cut goes from those marks I made on the divider all the way around. All right, now that we've got the corners cut off here, we need to be able to drill a hole, because we need to be able to connect if we go back to the example, we need to connect the front piece to the back piece with these right here. These right here called rivets, or we'll also call them cold connections in this class. The other connection would be a hot connection, where you're using a torch and actually soldering or melting metal together, kind of like glue. But these right here, what we need to do is drill holes first. And if you look on your template right here, I've got these 4 marks here for you. What you're going to do is you're going to start with cutting out your template on the outside line and simply line it up to your piece here. Okay, and if you do have some extra on the outside here, you're welcome to file that down, or just as long as it's symmetrical, it's totally good. And we'll take some Scotch tape, which is enough, and all you're doing is taping this so that the paper doesn't move. All right, I don't need to use too much. I don't want to glue it down because I want to be able to move this, and glue can be messy, as you know. Now, I need to mark where just one of those holes are. That's very important. And I'm going to get a metal anvil. You can use the vise, you can use any of the metal bench pins on the metal table, or you can grab one of these. There's 2 of them out of the drawer with the hammers. Right here, this is a punch. Okay, it's simply a spike of wood, or spike of metal, excuse me, and it's sharp here. I'm just going to mark this, so I'm going to get right in the center of that dot, and 3 small taps, and that's it. Now I can move to the next step. The next step is to have, where'd it go? Right here. We'll take this piece. This is a piece of nickel. I would have the corners cut off. I would tape this on here, and with the small piece, I would mark all 4 corners. You can either use the same piece of paper after you're finished with this one, cut it out, or you can grab a second piece of paper. I don't really care. Once you've marked all 4, then you can drill them. Make sure you use a 14 gauge drill bit. Here's a new tool. This right here will measure, the gauge or the thickness of wire, sheet metal, anything. So this is a 14 gauge drill bit. It's found in the top of the toolbox. Right there, it fits real nice. 15, it doesn't fit. Okay, so it's the gap, not the hole. The hole is way too big. Okay, it's the gap that goes to the outside. 13, too big. 14, too big. 15, it doesn't fit. So this is 14. You're gonna want to, so you see with wire, 14 fits, 15, no go. 14 gauge drill bit, and you're going to go over to the drill press, and you're going to drill those holes after you've got them marked. If you don't mark them, it's not going to work very well. So here is the piece of copper that we're working with, and I have drilled those 4 holes. Right there like that. Here's all my marks with the logo backwards, like this. There it is. Okay, sometimes you will find when you go to the drill press that there's already a drill bit in here. You are more than welcome to grab the gauge measure and make sure that it is the right size. We're looking for 14 gauge, and that is what's in there, which is great. Always remember your safety glasses. And this is the one exception, if you haven't heard this from the safety video, when you're using these smaller drill presses, where you're controlling the speed with your feet, that you don't necessarily have to clamp it down, especially where this is so big. Okay, so here we go. What I like to do is line up and make sure that this goes through the table through the middle and not actually drilling a hole through the table. That's a sad day. Right here, line up with where that hole is. Now this is the lower plate, and I'm just going to drill one hole. Do not drill any more than one hole in this. Later on I'll explain why. So here we are, low speed. Come down here. You're looking for little chips and ribbons of metal as it's cutting. Okay, you see those little ribbons. And as you increase pressure, downforce, you increase speed. You don't want to go any more than that, just like that. Now, what you can do is, when you drill, every once in a while you get a sharp burr on the back. This is called a chamfer tool. And you take this, put it in the hole, give it a little round and around, and all of that is cleaned up nice. Those little burrs will get in the way, and you will have a hard time connecting with the other piece. You'll get a gap, and it'll look bad. We just want one hole. As we continue, it is now time to cut out of the small piece of metal your logo like this, okay? And first, what you need to do is you need to drill a hole. Now I'm going to show you on this one already cut out. All right, so as I do this, I want to drill a hole right in the middle. It's tempting to just put the hole right on the side. We don't want to do that because we don't want to damage this edge. Sometimes that happens and then we can't fix it. So you're going to drill a hole right through the middle. Then you will thread your saw blade into that hole. And those of you that haven't done it before, you're going to take the saw blade, make sure it's fixed in the top, loose on the bottom, thread your piece in through that hole that you drilled, and then fix it back into the saw frame. Once you get the blade in, then it's tempting to want to just buzz around the outside edge. I don't want you to do that. I want you to make a cut here, okay, or thereabouts, but you're coming into this corner and you get tight into there. Then you back out and come this direction and come straight in here, and this whole piece will fall out. And then you can come to here and cut around the outside edge here, back it out, and then come this way and cut straight across there, then come in this way. You're taking this out in pieces. There's 100 ways you can do this. Come in here and then around the corner. You're basically just coming in both directions into each of these corners. Okay. Next step would be to file and sand it. All right, so I've got this all cut out with coping saw, and right now I've got a needle file. This is a half round and flat on one side. Just pick the file that is going to fit the shape best depending on the template you're using. But what I'm looking at here is I'm just bracing against the bench pin, and it's a tight corner, so I'm never leaving the metal, but I'm being gentle with the pressure. And what I'm doing is just working my way around, okay, to get rid of any saw marks so that they're nice and clean. I want to try and keep my curves correct, and I want to make sure that I'm not filing off any details that I want to keep. If you do this Wildcat logo, careful of these corners. Always leave more, like I did here, and then file down to the line. Try not to be super precise with your filing. You can get creative here. Right here I've got a pretty sharp edge here. We can either use the burnisher and gently roll that edge, but make sure, remember that edge, that corner is really sharp, and if you drag it across here, you're going to have to sand that edge out. And so, you know, it's light pressure with lots of passes, and that will help. Or you can get a file and file that edge down, although you just be gentle with it. But once you get this cut, then we will drill these holes. All right, sanding. Just as a review, when you're sanding this, you want to sand both sides, but really the back is just to make it flat, is not to make it pretty. It doesn't matter, okay? Here, make your tape handle, and depending on this, I'm going to put it more on the side here, just so that I've got a handle of it. And go in lots of different directions so that you are getting even pressure all around. This is where you get your scratches out. And maybe some frustrations. See how I'm doing this? It's a little bit difficult because of my iPad stand, but basically that's what you're doing. Both sides of both pieces of material. And that's the back. That got it nice and smooth. And then